Hundreds of players participated across the globe as they whittled down to just 18 players remaining here on the world stage. They're going to be representing their nations. They're looking for a championship, and they want to feel triumph here on that global stage as they are trying to fight for their chance at over $150,000, or at least their portion of it, moving on forwards. A warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to South Korea. My name is James Carroll, and I am here going to be your host throughout the next 3 days as we are ready to begin the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang.
The Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang is an event held in advance to the Winter Olympic Games of 2018. StarCraft players from around the world take part in local qualifiers to earn their spot to compete in PyeongChang, South Korea in early February. The regions represented are Africa, East Asia, West Asia, China, Europe, North America, South America, Oceania, South Korea. 18 players from the above regions will travel to PyeongChang to compete for their share of $150,000 and the right to be crowned champion. North America will have a live playoff match to determine their final competitors before entering the 16-player single elimination bracket. Each round will be played in a best-of-5 match until the grand final, which will then be played in a best-of-7. Global representation, intense competition. Who will be crowned the champion of the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang 2018?
A familiar voice joining us for the start of this as we get down to the nitty-gritty. 3 days across it, we will have a phenomenal tournament with those 18 players about to approach the stage and get good to go. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the analysis desk as I am joined to my left-hand side by Dan Artosis Stimkowski, and we also have Kevin Rotterdam van der Kooi joining us to start the action here. Gentlemen, we have quite the tournament on our hands.
It is such an international field. We have the best players from around the globe, and the bracket, it is so fierce. There's so many good matches here. It's almost impossible to tell what's going to happen.
Couldn't agree more. So excited to be here. It's beautiful as well, all around the entire venue as well. It's just, it feels amazing, James. We've casted a couple of the qualifiers as well, so it's not just this tournament. It's not that you travel to a tournament and show up here and you start like, no, we already know the road that some of these players went down to, and I'm really excited to see what is going to unfold in these upcoming days.
Yeah, same. As you were mentioning, it's a truly global feel where these players are going to be able to represent their nations as they're able to move on forwards here. So that's got to have a little bit of a special place in their heart when it comes to being here on this world stage in the lead up to something like the Olympics.
Oh, of course. And to have this big of an international field, out of 18 players, there's, what, 16 different countries? Yes. That is a huge amount, and there's several countries that have real shots at winning the championship.
Yeah, I mean, there is those situations where, you know, as we now take a look at the qualified players, of course, here, with the 18 that are going to be representing throughout this bracket, you know, everyone comes into a lot of tournaments in StarCraft 2 saying, Korea's very good, Korea's going to be shining here. But if you look at these qualified players, Rotterdam, there's a lot of big names there.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a very balanced tournament. Balance, one of the favorite words in StarCraft 2, right? But we've got players from all over the world, from every continent, and we've got a very good racial distribution as well when it comes to the races being played in StarCraft. So, I mean, you look at this and you just get excited as a StarCraft 2 fan, and you look at the actual bracket as well, which is going to come up. You see good matches, you see good potential storylines, you see potential upsets, perhaps.
And the qualifiers for a lot of these players was quite grueling when it came to, especially when you split Europe up into 5 regions itself, and everyone was trying to vie for their position in their particular side of Europe, etc. Did you manage to catch a lot of the qualifiers, and how did you kind of see those playing out?
Well, I tell you what, the Korean qualifiers I watched very closely.
Right.
You know, Korea, kind of the favored nation of StarCraft, and it was brutal. Every single top player participated, and at the end of the day, 2 Protoss players standing on top, I do kind of feel like they're the favorites of the tournament.
Yeah. How about you, Roddy, from the qualifiers?
I mean, the Korean qualifiers were obviously stacked as hell, but I mean, don't forget about the European qualifiers. They were also very tough. You know, traditionally Scandinavia, a very strong region in Europe, only a single player here. So, you know, someone like Cyril already had to battle his way through a lot of very tough opponents. And what to think of someone like Elazer? He's not just here because he was the best player in Poland. No, he had to go up against the German players and stuff as well. These qualifiers were a lot of fun to watch, and like I said, that just builds up to the actual event.
Well, not only was the qualifier grueling, this bracket could potentially be grueling now as we take a look at how it's going to break down with our 18 players representing. So as you can see, we have a round of 16. Everything will be best of 5s up until the final, which is best of 7. And as you can see at the beginning there, we have this round of 17, 18 kind of round there, because we do actually have 4 representatives from North America. But looking at the bracket, gentlemen, what really stands out for you to start things off?
Well, James, for me, the top half of that bracket, I just see so many amazing matches and potential upsets. And one of my favorites, Zest versus Stefano. What a match this is. Zest, a multiple-time champion, an Intel Extreme Masters world champion,
Correct.
in fact. You know, maybe last year wasn't as hot for him, but he is looking in peak form right now. Going up against Stefano, representing Tunisia, who used to be one of the best players in the world, kind of retired for a little bit, but he is back, he's looking strong, and I consider him one of the smartest players in the world. I think that he has real potential to kind of reclaim some of his former glory here by taking down Zest.
One of the only players in the past that was able to stand up to the Koreans. Admittedly, that was a long time ago, and now kind of the field has grown and thrived from there. How about you, Roddy? What really stands out for you?
I obviously do agree with Dan that the top side of the bracket looks very, very fierce. I mean, you've got the 2 European titans in there as well. You got to keep an eye on those. Elaser and Zero. A lot of the people first focus on the Koreans with all the right reasons. I mean, history doesn't lie, but having those 2 European Zergs on the top side, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. But the bottom side, obviously, plenty of good players there. And one first-round matchup that really does stand out for me is perhaps DNS versus SOS. SOS comes in as one of the absolute top favorites of this tournament. But DNS is a very talented Protoss player from France. He has had a lot of very good online results. We're just kind of waiting until he finally shows it offline. And, you know, very recently he had a shot. Once again, it wasn't his tournament. But if there's ever a moment to shine, this could very well be it. And what an amazing way would it be for DNS if he could somehow start this tournament off by eliminating one of the favorites immediately.
I feel like I've cast him so much online, but never had a chance to properly meet him in real life. He's been at some of the Dream Hacks, etc., and that's how it's go. But yeah, we don't really get to see him too much here on the international stage. Let's take a look at the schedule, ladies and gents, to get you filled in on exactly how the games are going to be broken down throughout today. And of course, next days we will have a more going on as well. So, looking at the schedule, looking at the games that we're kicking things off with, you already highlighted Stefano going up against Zest. It looks pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a fantastic match, but all of these are actually really tight matches where it's hard to see who's going to come out on top. And I got to say, another one I'm looking at there, Time, our Chinese player, this guy had a breakout year last year. He made it into the GSL, one of our top tournaments out there. Every time he showed his play, he was in magnificent form. So this is a year where I'm watching him saying, is he going to win a big championship?
How about you, Roddy?
I also agree with that. I mean, one thing, I think something that's very traditional about the European scene is that a lot of the European pros, especially when they're off camera, they're brutally honest. And, you know, we just had a big tournament in Leipzig, and they all universally agree that Time is the best player in China right now. Some even said by far, so that really does mean a lot. He's definitely someone to keep an eye on. But I'm actually kind of excited for our TVT as well, because that's a clash you just don't see very often. We've got Hero Marine representing Italy going up against, I would say, one of the hottest Terrans of 2017 as well, in the name of Calazur, who's also got a great story and really like stellarly rose towards the top. He's been around for 4 or 5 years now in the pro scene, but he started off as a round of 64, round of 32 guy. But Calazur really made a big splash for himself last year. I think that's going to be a very fun best of 5 TVT.
And not only do we have the games here on the main stream, but we also have a B stream that you can tune into, as we just showed you the schedule for those games that is going on throughout the day as well. So a lot of good action here from day number 1 to find out who's going to be moving through into that round of 8. I think one thing to highlight that's very important is our first match, of course, which is going to be SpeCial going up against PandaBearMe. This is, it's a cliche, but this is kind of a David versus Goliath situation when it comes to the StarCraft scene.
It truly is, all right? I mean, SpeCial is one of the most experienced pro gamers in all of StarCraft. He's been around for a good 10 years at the top of StarCraft, and even last year, like, he had a lot of breakout performances. He was hitting the top of the WCS circuit all the time. You know, he had a lot of great results, including a top 4 at the World Championships at BlizzCon.
Right.
Yeah, his global finals performance was absolutely amazing. Not to forget that he was the only one who was able to eliminate Neeb last year in the WCS circuit event as well. So obviously you have to keep an eye on it, and you have to be very, very excited to watch somebody like SpeCial in action here.
Yeah, definitely. And then, you know, as you mentioned, he got the top 4 at the last global finals.
Yeah.
For me, SpeCial is a guy that throughout years and years and years of StarCraft 2, he always had this untapped potential, but last year he was able to tap into it, Dan.
He certainly was. Like, it's been a long time coming for him. Like I said, he's been playing for so long, even in StarCraft 1, switching over to StarCraft 2. But he's so strong right now. I mean, tell me if you disagree. I think he's going to get top 4 in this tournament.
If you look at his bracket, and I think if he looks at his bracket, he's probably quite pleased with it. Now, this is not a tournament where you can underestimate anybody, because this is a very unforgiving tournament.
Yeah.
This is not some double elimination. You've got like 7 best of 5s to play, 1 bad series, and you could be done. This is a single elimination bracket, so it's really hard to make that call for sure. But once again, I am pretty sure that SpeCial looks at this bracket and be like, it's not going to be easy, but I kind of like this. I think these are opponents that suit me quite well.
Right, definitely. Because the way he's kind of presented himself in the last year, it's very strong. And obviously he's in that round where he's just kind of going up against the Americans, trying to qualify through against the world's top players here as we continue things on. Of course, his opponent going up against him, PandaBearMe, a little bit more of an unknown, really, on the international stage, unless you really tune into a lot of qualifiers online.
Yeah, he's been up and coming for a while, but I don't think he's maybe hit his stride as well as SpeCial, right? SpeCial's been at the top of the tournaments for a bit. He's played a long time. It takes years and years to rise to the top of StarCraft.
Right. Well, of course, we could kind of just chat here and tell you a bit more about PandaBearMe, but we have quite the feature indeed to give you a little bit of a background about PandaBearMe.
You'd never guess that there was a player playing premier tournaments in this town, or, you know, a town like this. You know, you just assume they're all in the big cities. It's a super small town in Menominee. It's 16,000 people, I think. You gotta go like an hour if you want to go to the mall, but you don't really want to go outside that much. It's real cold out there. I think there's one StarCraft player that I know in a nearby college in Menominee, but I mean, there's not many people who even know what StarCraft is. I was born here and I was raised here for a little while, but then I moved around a lot. My dad worked in real estate for big companies, and we'd kind of move all over the country, from anywhere from south to north, to east to west.
We ended up splitting up in our relationship, but then all of a sudden I'm trying to find jobs, and that caused me to move around almost more so. This was in Michigan. This one's North Fork in Idaho. We moved 1 year 4 times in a year. You have to go where the job is that I can do, and I didn't have a lot of skills. Isaac has moved 23 times.
At a young age, I was like, I keep moving and I keep losing my friends. I'll just stick to online friends because they're always there. I was playing World of Warcraft a lot, and one of my buddies was talking about how he played StarCraft sometimes. He's like, oh, this game's really cool. You should try it out. I was like, all right, sure. And that was when I was 12. It was definitely some humble beginnings because I got smashed a lot by everybody.
Everybody deals with hardships differently. It was really at a bad time, so he really needed it, and I needed him to have that at the time, too.
I'm real close to my mom, closer than anybody else in my family, for sure. Throughout the years, she was the only family member that really understood and then also supported it.
The time he qualified as a top 10 high school StarCraft player, he qualified to go to the LA tournament. And at that time, it was probably the biggest hardship time of our lives. So I'm literally selling stuff so I can get him to the airport, so I can get up enough gas to take him and to be able to go back and get him. It was worth it to me because I thought, well, he made this great accomplishment. He should get there.
PandaBearMe is moments away from securing a spot for South Korea, PyeongChang, IEM. Congratulations to PandaBearMe.
I've never actually been to Asia before. The tournament's going to be super hard. There's a lot of players that I could easily beat, to be honest, but just because of my seed and the circumstance, it's going to be difficult. This tournament is a crossroads for me. Something's going to happen that's going to really define how I live the rest of my years. So I just have to prepare and enjoy it.
Always fantastic to hear from the loved ones of these players as they kind of participate and move forwards into a tournament quite like this. And what an opportunity, gentlemen, for someone like PandaBearMe to represent on this kind of stage and try and upset someone like a powerhouse like SpeCial.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that this is probably the biggest best of 5 that he's going to play in his career up to this point.
Yeah.
He has a little bit of tournament experience on the international circuit as well. It's not like he's never left the country. I've seen him in Germany, but nothing like this. You know, those are big open tournaments. You need to play multiple rounds. This is one best of 5 that's going to determine your entire tournament. If you lose here, it's over. It's been a beautiful story. I love that video. I loved everything about it. And also looking at the weather, he should feel quite comfortable because it's pretty cold over here as well. But yeah, I loved it. He's a great guy. He's a hard-working guy. Still flies a little bit under the radar, but he absolutely has a lot of skills.
Well, this is where he can really change all that, right? Like, if he can win even one best of 5 here against a monster like SpeCial, someone who just got top 5 in the World Championships, that's where we all start talking about PandaBearMe every tournament, saying, okay, how far is he going to go? You know, we expect him to qualify. We expect him to be here.
Yeah.
But, you know, if he doesn't, I don't think it's really that big of a deal for him because he's still an up-and-coming player. You know, we can still give him a few more years to find his stride to start winning tournaments.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for someone like him, you were mentioning that this is probably even just kind of, even if he would take one win here, would be the biggest moment of his career. I mean, even qualifying for something like this kind of tournament, is already a huge step for him in his career.
No, I'm sure he's embracing it. I mean, you just look at yourself. If you look at the tournament VODs, you're like, damn, that's awesome. You know, I was there. I took part in the tournament. But this would be the highlight of his career without a shadow of a doubt, I think, if he could get that win here. It's funny as well, because these are two North American players going up against each other. And then you expect them to have a lot of history, right, in either online tournaments or even offline tournaments as well. But they've only played like 3 or 4 times in their entire career, at least in a professional circumstance. I'm sure they've played plenty of practice games or ladder games against each other. But in the entirety of 2017, they did not meet once. And I actually think that's a pretty funny statistic, because that's not what you expect from 2 top players from NA.
Yeah, I totally see where you're going with that. One thing to point out, though, is that SpeCial spends a lot of his time out here in Korea. You know, this country is known for having a majority of the top players. So he's just always out here grinding against those Korean players, getting in the best practice he possibly can, which is another reason why he's such a favorite.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen, as we're about to head over to introduce you to a few more people that we have available to us. Indeed, right on over here, the dynamic duo to start off the commentary. We have Nathanias over at the end, and we have Pig joining us as well. Gentlemen, excited to be here, looking forward to the series?
Yeah, it's fantastic. You know, being down here is a special opportunity and a great match to start things off as well. It's going to be a good, you know, it's a great way to start the day when you've got an underdog up against a powerhouse. Always starts off with a bit of drama.
And it's always amazing to hear that story that a player like PandaBearMe has coming in as that underdog. You can really see the emotion and the feeling that he has and the love he has for this game and how far he wants to go as a pro gamer.
I mean, looking at how this matchup sizes up, I mentioned before over there, it's kind of a David versus Goliath situation, but when you look at PandaBear's opportunities here, does he have the opportunity to really upset someone like SpeCial? What do you think?
I think it's definitely well in favor of SpeCial. You know, we're not going to mince words and say, hey, he's just going to come out of the gate and take him down, but he has an opportunity. SpeCial has had a crazy tournament schedule recently. He's been very busy, and so many of his matches have been broadcast, whereas PandaBearMe, he's been flying under the radar, so he's got a lot of time to study his opponent. Definitely an opportunity for him to put his name on the board.
How about yourself?
I think it's very important to take into consideration the pressure that is going to be on both of these players playing on a stage like this. SpeCial has been here so many times. He's competed in tournament finals. He has been one of the best players in StarCraft 2. I think he comes in with a lot more cool edge going into this, and that could play against PandaBearMe as well.
Definitely have an opportunity. And one of these players will represent North America as we get down the line here between these two, obviously, with this being a round of 18 match effectively and good to go. Thank you very much, gentlemen, as we are almost ready to begin our first series here for the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang 2018. We all have a lot of amazing players from all around the world, 18 in total spanning 6 continents, but only one will be crowned champion at the end of the next 3 days. With the $150,000 prize pool, there's a lot of money at stake, and the winner will be taking home $50,000. There's a lot of great StarCraft games to be played, a lot of amazing moments to be witnessed. This is the Intel Extreme Masters.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This first series to kick off, the United States versus Mexico in the North American qualifier, SpeCial against PandaBearMe. Couldn't ask for a better series to start off the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang, Pig.
Yeah, SpeCial is a powerhouse. He really came into his own element last year, showed us all that he is one of the absolute best players in the world, and you got to remember it was a hard run for him. He ran into the American champion Neeb many times last year, stopped him in his tracks, finally did upset him and make it to the top 4 in the world, but now he's facing a much less known American player, a player who's coming up, who's got that passion, who's been playing the game since he was 12 years old. PandaBearMe looking to challenge the established top-end player.
And it's an interesting thing to consider, as we brought up earlier. SpeCial has had the spotlight on him for so long. There is no one in the StarCraft scene, you follow these tournaments, that doesn't know about SpeCial. His accomplishments span far and wide. He was the best performing American player in the global finals last year. He went farther than almost all of the other players that weren't representing the Korean region. And he has been broadcast a lot. There's a lot to study of him. Most people, if you watch these tournaments, you see his games, you see how he plays, you should have some expectation. Perhaps that's something PandaBearMe can take. Maybe we'll see something special out of him in this series.
Yeah, you know, SpeCial has had a very grueling schedule lately, playing so many tournaments back-to-back. And that's what you want to do as a professional player. You're in form. You want to capitalize on that, but definitely something to keep an eye on here is, has he exposed too many of his strategies? Has PandaBearMe maybe studied his, his build orders, found some chinks in the armor? I was talking to Isaac here, PandaBearMe, this morning, and he said he had a lot of little plans he's been figuring out, and he wasn't afraid to take a gamble. He was saying, look, if I can get a 60-40 chance in a map, I'm going to take it. I'm going to jump on it. I don't mind taking some gambles here. He said, this is a tough matchup for me. I struggle versus Terran players against SpeCial. You know, he's a huge opponent, but at the same time, it takes a little bit of the pressure off his shoulders because he says, look, I'm not afraid to take the risks. I know I've got to do something that's out of my comfort zone to make this match work for me.
Yeah, and it's going to be so interesting to see how that plays in with the changes that happen in StarCraft 2 is an evolving game, which recently had an update. How much of SpeCial strategies will have been adjusted from the previous tournament that he just played? And also, the other interesting thing with both of these players coming in from North America that Artosis mentioned is SpeCial plays a lot in Korea. He spends a lot of time in Korea practicing with them. Does he match PandaBearMe on the American ladder that often? Do they have a ton of games against each other? Even though they haven't played in tournaments, you expect them to hit each other in their practice games.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering now where that vibe is between them. How often do they actually play each other? How comfortable is PandaBearMe going up against SpeCial, you know, in a tournament or even just a ladder game?
It's going to be a tough match for the young American, but he's definitely come in here with a lot of preparation, a lot of plans. Had a long chat to him about the maps and the different styles and strategies on there. So he actually, as well, showed me. He had a huge text article he saved on a USB. The amount of study he'd done on the maps, the strategies that SpeCial's been showing, as well as his own options and strategies. Something a lot of players kind of just store this in their head, but it's really cool to see a young player coming in with a massive amount of preparation. It was just page after page of different timings that he had memorized, different strategies. And that's the sort of prep you need to bring when you want to break out into this international scene.
That's a really important thing to bring up, since this would be the second Premier tournament that will be played on this map pool, as it just recently rolled over with the start of 2018 and the new season beginning. So maybe in this series, things to keep our eyes out for are interesting use of map features for strategies that PandaBearMe may try to use to catch SpeCial off guard. We know that he can play the slow styles. We know that he can play these long games, but this is going to be, it's going to be a hell of a series for him regardless.
Oh yeah. Going to be going into that match in just a moment. Of course, this is Mexico versus USA here to see who can get that last wildcard spot through to the top 16.
Yes, it's going to be SpeCial versus PandaBearMe here at the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang. And it's sure to be an exciting Terran versus Zerg to get everything going as we welcome you all online watching this wonderful tournament. Just the first of 3 days. There's going to be so much StarCraft played, so much representation from around the world is always amazing to see, Pig. And I mean, of course, as the American myself, I love to see guys like PandaBearMe.
Yeah.
We all love our underdog stories. Being able to see him take a couple maps, possibly, I mean, in the unlikely sense, this series would be so incredible.
Yeah, I mean, we've been playing games with him ourselves in the past years when he was yet a young one who wasn't quite up to this level. Of course, he'd absolutely smash us these days, us washed-up commentators, but he's definitely doing really well and starting to improve there. So very curious to see what these players bring out. Zerg versus Terran. I mean, the real danger here from SpeCial, he's a Terran player, but he's got so many different styles and strategies. And this is one of the things that I was talking to PandaBearMe about. He was saying, you know, he can play the bio style, he can play mech. He's got many different strategies up his sleeve. But one thing that PandaBearMe had focused on was pinpointing tells within his openings. So he's going to be keeping an eye out for certain things. If he sees certain units, like I believe he was saying, if a Liberator comes out, he knows it's always going to be a bio follow-up. If it's a Banshee, it's always going to be mech. He was looking for these tells. He said it's not 100%, but he knows he needs to be able to read SpeCial's play as early as possible and try to counter it. So he's willing to kind of just look for the smallest tells, and he's going to immediately react to those.
In a game like StarCraft 2, you do not always have all the information in front of you. You have to make snap calls and take calculated risks to get an advantage against your opponent and take those opportunities to win the games. And if you want to be a championship caliber player, then you have to be able to perform that as PandaBearMe. But we are loaded into the first map here of the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang. Ladies and gentlemen, in the northeast position of Eastwatch, we have the blue Terran player representing Mexico. He is SpeCial.
And his opponent down here in the bottom left-hand side of Eastwatch in the red, representing USA, it is PandaBearMe.
An awesome match to kick things off here for the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang. A Terran versus Zerg, one of the classic favorite matchups of StarCraft 2. And Eastwatch, one of the new maps this season that's come in. Pig, maybe break it down a little bit for us.
Oh, this is a really cool map. Asking a lot of pros about this over the last few days, everyone says, I don't have my mind made up. It's such a complicated map. Lots of narrow pathways across the map, many different paths, but there's also a lot of these rocks. Right here at the center of our screen, we can see a rock tower. You can take that down. It'll actually block the path. Of course, those paths can be cleared, but it takes a long time to break those rocks down afterwards. So we can see that this map can actually be shaped by the players as they play it. And as a result, there's definitely some decisions to be made, specifically with the gold mineral bases. They're really risky. Down here, we see one. If PandaBearMe goes for that, it's going to be a big risk because there is a rock tower just to the north. And if that gets taken down by the opponent, your bases are effectively cut apart, and it becomes nearly impossible to defend every location.
Lots of tricky pathways on this map then. Looking at the way that this game has started, SpeCial has opened up with a fast scouting unit, the Reaper, to gain information about PandaBearMe's build, but nothing incredibly aggressive just yet. Both players are going to build up, it seems to be, a little bit of their economy before they move into big army strategies.
And here we see, of course, the immediate pressure from SpeCial with that first Reaper taking advantage of its high mobility in the early game to try and find some damage. You can see good micro from PandaBearMe, pulls back the weakened Zerglings, and then the Queen does pop out in time to deflect that Reaper. This is just a solid play from both players. And oh wow, actually going straight for the Creep Tumor on the natural. Interesting maneuver there from PandaBearMe, skipping the first inject, wants to get the creep spread out really fast to connect those bases.
Is it possible that he's concerned about an attack, that he wants to spread the creep to the third and he can reposition his queens to defend more easily, or?
I guess that's going to help a lot against any fast Hellbat attacks, right? We've seen like the Hellbat multiple Reaper attacks that SpeCial does like to pull out. Not only that, but I mean, it's just a good way to get a head start on your creep. This matchup is often a lot about that creep spread. It gives a huge movement speed bonus as well as vision to the Zerg player, and you can see that they can just kind of grow it gradually and slowly infest the map. So if that gets past a certain point, it hits a sort of tipping point where the Terran player just cannot keep it in control.
The reinforcing waves just come in far too quickly for you to be able to defend. We do see SpeCial moving into some Hellions. He's going to try to take map control. He wants to push that creep back. He wants to keep the map clean so that he cannot be attacked, or he can attack more easily himself. He'll also be following up with Stim, so we will not be seeing a mech game out of the Mexican Terran player, as well as a Viking. To clear out Overlords, he wants to deny the vision that PandaBearMe has on the map and make sure that he can safely do whatever he wants to do without being too easily scouted.
And this Overlord is coming in for the scout. The Viking is going to be out, but if that Overlord can spot the Stim upgrading, that is going to be a nice tell. It can actually see that the starport is not producing right now, and it spots the Stim, so that's a pretty big tell. PandaBearMe should have a strong idea that this is indeed going to be bio play.
And with the size of this map, with the way that he's going to be using these choke points, do we expect to see a lot of drop play or maybe slow pushes? What do you like on this map when you think about it in terms of like a bio Terran going up against perhaps like a Ling, Hydra, Bane sort of setup from the Zerg?
I'd love to see some siege tank usage, Nate. I mean, siege tanks on this map with these choke points, really nice for those pushes, but at the same time, you do get quite spread out, so some drops as well could be big, but hold the phone.
He's just going to try to run the Hellion straight by, and he gets caught at the main base ramp. The Zerglings get a good surround and pick off most of them. He loses Lings, but he does not lose his economy, and a major investment out of SpeCial gets shut down very early on, almost doubling the resources that he's lost in this game, but that Viking is going to help tip the scales back in his favor as he continues to deny the scouting, but losing the Hellions, he's lost his map control.
That was a very risky maneuver, and PandaBearMe jumped on it. He shut it down. His Zerglings were prepared in the main base, and after shutting that down, now the creep spread will boss him out.
No. He lowered the ramp. He wanted to let his SCV in, and well, he almost let in the enemy army.
If those Zerglings got in there, that would have been game over almost immediately. You've got to use this wall in here to defend, and that's got to be a mind game from PandaBearMe, just morphing two Banelings in vision, trying to freak out
He's like
SpeCial.
faking him out, yeah.
That's insane.
It's not enough Banelings to blow up the wall. There's not a ton of Marines to actually defend against this, but yeah, he's not ready to commit to that either. He doesn't want to put all his eggs in the basket this early in the series.
Shows some confidence, though, from PandaBearMe. Just opting for these cute little plays, making a few Banelings here and there. That is nice, but the Viking here going to equalize a little bit.
He's got to be racking up those kills. He's at 4 Overlords. He's going to get 5 now, and I think there's still 1 or 2 more out on the map that he could potentially hunt down.
And look at PandaBearMe's supply, yet he's still nowhere near supply block. So he's built plenty of Overlords to adjust to it, but that's still damage you don't want to be taking.
And he's closing off those rocks, Pig, so he's trying to deny the pathway for SpeCial so that he slows down any assault the Terran player might want to make.
That's really interesting, actually. Probably wants to be a little bit greedy here as well, and this makes sense, right? He's going into Hydralisks, he's got the range upgrade for them. It's all about creep spread with Hydras. This isn't an army that you bust the bio player with, no. It's a buying time mid-game plan for PandaBearMe. He wants to defend any assaults from the Terran and buy time until the later stages, hopefully getting up to those Ultralisks in the late game, and that's where he'll look to take control and get aggressive.
So SpeCial wants to make his first move out. We see the Marines come, they kill the Overlord, and this should indicate to PandaBearMe, okay, there's an army that's moving around. I need to be prepared for this. He's going to bust down some of the rocks. That opens the area around his base. Meanwhile, as the upgrades are slowly coming to finish, the first set for both players, those timings, that window where the upgrades are done just before your opponent, it's going to be very slim, not as much of a factor for this fight. Both players have really been on top of upgrading their armies.
Yeah, absolutely. And SpeCial here goes towards what he thought was going to be the 4th base, but PandaBearMe hasn't even taken it. PandaBearMe is going to jump the gun and engage a little bit early here. Does get a few Marines, but I don't know if that was quite worth it. And SpeCial, realizing there's no base there to siege up, is just going to evacuate as quickly as possible. Of course, PandaBearMe opting for the very safe base in the middle of the map. And this creep spread, man, it's just all over the place. Major SpeCial, he's trying to clean this up, but he isn't quite able to deal with it. The Zerglings get the wraparound, Nate.
Yeah, he's able to push the siege tanks back, and that means that distance artillery support will not be a factor for this attack anymore. He can still try to drop around the units. We see more drops being loaded on the east side of the map, but adding on 2 more factories, Looks like we're going to see possibly a lot of siege tanks out of Special, really trying to slow things down and get that big, dedicated push ready to go in a few minutes.
This has been a style that he's been showing lately. The second and third factory transition, of course, giving him that massive siege tank production, and potentially Thors in the late game against Ultralisks. Not too bad at dealing with that. A double drop sliding down here on the bottom side of the map.
And there's only 2 Hydras here to try and shut this down. The Medivacs are at full health. He could try to force the issue here, but he sees them. He doesn't want to just yet. He's going to bring the Marines to the top side. Scans to clear some creep. He's going to kill a couple of the Zerglings. Both players have the +2 upgrades on the way, so he's just trying to keep that map presence, delay the creep spread, but also keep PandaBearMe on his toes, limit his opportunity to move on the map and take more bases.
What's so beautiful about this is that he did lose those Hellions in the early game, Nate. You'd think that would give up the map control for the Terran. It would weaken his follow-up pushes. But SpeCial is just showing a masterclass in not committing. He's just zoning around the edges with the drop on the bottom. He's got the drop on the north, but he hasn't actually thrown many units away. Besides those 2 siege tanks, he hasn't lost many Marines, and yet look at PandaBearMe's creep spread. It was massive, and now it's starting to get cut in on the sides. It's still going great on the frontal path, but the supply for SpeCial is incredible, and if he can open up a siege tank push maybe around the south or the north of the map, that's going to be his timing attack. Of course, when those 2-2 upgrades finish with a ton of Marines and siege tanks, that is where SpeCial wants to hit a finishing blow.
Yeah, and keeping in mind the size of the map, trying to maneuver around is also a big deal since those Hydras are not going to be that fast without that creep spread that you mentioned. If the creep spread only goes 1 lane down the center of the map, well, you're going to funnel them all straight into the siege tanks, and that limits where PandaBearMe can move his forces. He catches some of these lings on the north side outside of his base. He still has the drops waiting outside the main of PandaBearMe, and he's saying, if you want to move out, if you want to try to attack me, I will be right there to punish you immediately, and even killing these Zerglings by delaying the breaking of these rocks. He can't take the gold base.
SpeCial's so good with his multitasking. He's just being annoying down here on the south side, and that's pulled PandaBearMe's attention away, which is allowing him to push through the front. The creep receding very quickly now. And PandaBearMe, he doesn't have a gigantic economy, but
but he's got the Hydras are just going to catch these 2 Medivacs sitting on the bottom side of the map. He gets 1, the second one barely going to slip away at less than half health, but you remove that pressure, and suddenly PandaBearMe's feeling a lot more comfortable in his shoes, able to dance around and get on top of him. SpeCial is sieging the tanks. He's got this choke point to work with. Very careful. If PandaBearMe tries to run through that, he could try to block it off. He's setting up for an amazing flank potentially here, Pig.
This is huge. PandaBearMe needs to get as big of a flank as possible. I'd love to see some units flank around the north side of the map. He's set up to come in from 2 angles, but that's still not the biggest arc. There we go. He's spreading those Zerglings and Banelings around the north side. If he can come in from 3 directions, he may be able to crush this army. SpeCial here with a huge force. The siege tanks are nicely spread out, looking to use that range superiority to great effect.
Yes, he has the rest of the siege tanks coming in. They are about to siege up. The army surround is ready. He's coming in from the north, the south, and the west. 3 of the tanks siege. The Banelings getting in on the Marines. A good chunk of them still alive on the left side, but the siege tanks have been destroyed. The Liberators unable to siege up, and the Hydralisks clean up SpeCial's army. The USA Zerg finally getting a little bit of momentum in this game as a small counterattack goes for SpeCial back towards the natural expansion.
SpeCial desperate to pull attention away from his base as he tries to evacuate. This small Marine attack is going to delay one of these upgrades. Nice denial there, but SpeCial, he doesn't have much at home. His 4th is looking very vulnerable. He needs a little bit of time to rebuild that army.
Yes, this is a huge opportunity for PandaBearMe. He's got the Hydralisks outside the expansion of SpeCial. The SCVs are attempting to repair the base so that it does not fall, but it takes more and more damage. Will he lose the Hydras to take this? No, he's going to pull back for a little bit. He was able to save, I think, the 2nd evolution chamber, so he's only lost that 1 upgrade back at home, and he's restarted it just now.
Yeah, I believe those Hydras do have both upgrades at this point. Indeed, they do, so they're very mobile on the map. But remember, a lot of Banelings were spent in that last fight, and SpeCial just using these 2 small drops to do massive damage behind enemy lines.
Counterattacking in 2 expansions at once. He's going to pull the whole army of PandaBearMe back. The Medivacs, one of them does get shut down, but he kills that northwest expansion. Pig, the Ultralist transition, though, it's just about ready, and this is a very Marine-heavy army.
Yeah, the Ghost Academy is going to go down in response from SpeCial, so Ghosts are going to be the addition here from our Mexican Terran player. Is it going to be fast enough, though, with those 3-3 upgrades, the chitinous plating and the Ultralisks already starting to spill out onto this map? And, I mean, hats off to PandaBearMe right now. We often see the underdog player falter in their creep spread when faced with the multi-prong aggression. But PandaBearMe hasn't been blinking at all. We see the creep respreading on the north. It's starting to spread back through the middle. Even the south side, he's got a little bit of creep out there. And that is what gives him map control and vision.
And these next few fights going to be crucial. The Zerglings poke towards the center. A few of these Ultralists, Burrow, he tried to drop some Banelings
are actually there.
So he's going to scan it. It actually causes the Marines to shoot the Banelings underneath their feet, blowing a few of them up. But he's got to get more bases out, and SpeCial's been trying to trim the fat on the expansions this whole game long, holding PandaBearMe to the same number of expansions as him.
Drop in the main base as well as up here at the top. There's actually a Liberator sieging up. Very nice. Going to get a few drone kills there. But good reactions from PandaBearMe so far.
Forcing the multitasking.
Yeah, that's what you use as the more experienced player, right? You just got to try to force your opponent into uncomfortable situations, buy time, force mistakes, and he's doing a good job of it as SpeCial, but I do worry for his position with the Ultralisks out on this map. We've got Zerglings starting to open up counterattack paths. This game looks like it's going to get forced into the later stages, and this is the point where SpeCial has to make the decision of which bases does he take next, and it looks like he's going to go for the gold up in the very top side of the map, and this is very far apart from the rest of his economy.
I feel like this becomes a turning point. It's a critical moment. As the Ghosts are coming out, they can deal with the Ultralists, and if he gets the economic advantage against PandaBearMe, SpeCial could use that to lock this down. PandaBearMe needs to make some very careful decisions over the next few minutes, Pig.
Oh yeah, looks like he is finally going to get this drop down here, but it's done so much damage. It's been so annoying, and SpeCial is not letting up yet. He's already got a bunch of Ghosts there, ready to snipe the Ultralisks. The Marine and Marauder coming very deep. A dangerous move. The Zerglings looking for the wraparound.
He just jumps right on top of the army through that choke bomb with the blinding cloud, shuts down the south half of the siege tanks. The Ultralisks have collapsed on the army. The Ghosts have no time to use their steady targeting on these Ultras, and they're going to continue to move forward. He wants to pull back to the planetary fortress by himself sometime. There the snipes go. He gets rid of one of the Ultras, but there's still more Vipers to drop blinding clouds and possibly abduct these Terran units as PandaBearMe is trying to knock down this center Terran base.
This micro from SpeCial, though, falling behind the planetary fortress. The blinding clouds, though, have been monstrous this game. The planetary fortress unable to shoot for a long time there. The Ultralisks and Hydras dishing out the damage, but SpeCial so good at pulling back his individual units, keeping them alive until the blinding clouds run out, and then he is able to turn this army around.
A top competitor at the global finals. We can see why SpeCial's one of them as he makes an amazing defense of this huge push by PandaBearMe to keep his expansions running, and all the while, Pig, he's finished up that gold base. He's going to lock that down with a planetary fortress, and he's going to start pulling that extra resource out.
Yeah, look at the creep spread. It's kind of receded in the middle of the map now, and PandaBearMe is starting to try to add drones. He's wanting to swap into Broodlords, but he's taken a big hit. He threw away a lot of units in that attack. He was going for broke, and I mean, if he did manage to take down that expansion of SpeCials, it would have paid off, but wasn't quite able to do it. And now PandaBearMe says, oh, we're in it for the long haul. To get back in this game, I need to just buy time. He's got a Zergling counterattack hitting the gold base.
And this could be devastating. The Zerglings are going to show up right as the planetary fortress finishes. They will be able to, if he doesn't repair, I mean, he could get a lot of damage in, but this medevac drop hits the gold base of PandaBearMe. At the same time, he's got another attack hitting the northwest. The drones with the gold have been killed. He focuses down the hatchery, and 2 expansions worth for PandaBearMe are completely shut down. This Ultralisk can kill these units, but at what cost, Pig? There's no resources being gathered there anymore, and his economy is in shambles.
Yeah, PandaBearMe just doesn't quite have the unit count at this stage. Overcommitting to that counterattack before, and now he's opting for the higher tier army, but having those 2 bases shut down right then, that was crucial. SpeCial says, hey, look, I'm getting maxed out again. I've got a high tier, high quality army. Meanwhile, PandaBearMe is struggling just to get the basics back out. His economy has been gutted. His map control just isn't there anymore. He doesn't even have queens to respread the creep. His economy is just trickling in slowly. SpeCial is maxed out, and he is ready to push in for the win.
Now, this army of Broodlords and Vipers is normally very scary. Without a maxed out force, it will not be able to do the trick. The Ghosts come forward. They're going to be steady targeting, sniping all of these Broodlords out of the sky. And GG is called. SpeCial will take game number 1 in this best of 5 from Mexico.
A decisive win there for SpeCial. Manages to close that game out. The early game looking quite good for the young American PandaBearMe, but I mean, the multitasking, that's exactly what SpeCial is known for. Just coming in with those drops from so many angles, and I love it the way he adjusts. You know, when SpeCial's ahead in a game, he'll push the front. He'll come in with that frontal assault and just keep kind of smashing away at the Zerg's defenses. But in this case, he said, look, I'm a little bit behind. I'm just going to pick away at you from the flanks. I'm going to drop you in the main base, drop you in the fourth repeatedly. He just never gave PandaBearMe the room to get in his own element.
Yeah, the early game signs were there, though, as you mentioned, Pig. He had an amazing defense of the Hellion attack. He was able to bounce back very quickly from that. We saw him push the creep spread very well early on, but SpeCial used that experience and that composure to continue to apply the pressure all game long, shut down that creep spread when it mattered, and kind of, in a weird way, his attacks that failed also caused PandaBearMe to overcommit in a lot of his responses with those big counterplays.
I think that was definitely the crucial point there, Nate, and you hit the nail on the head. It's that moment when you're playing against a Titan like SpeCial and you say to yourself, hey, I've got an opening, I've just crushed this fight, let's go, let's seal the deal now. And I think maybe just slightly overeager there from PandaBearMe, but I mean, even as an impartial observer, it looked like he almost had those fights, but SpeCial was so good at pulling back on the defense, just used that planetary fortress and the strength of that so well.
The blinding clouds were fantastic. He shut down so many of the siege tanks, but he had, I think, a pocket of 6 or so marauders in between that planetary and the Ghost Academy that were just wailing away on those ultralisks. And you know, you tunnel vision on that because you want to take that base down. As a Zerg player, you want to have that extra base or two against the Terran, but SpeCial did a great job of keeping the economy so close. And then those ghosts, they are insanely cost effective as you get more and more of them, and they build that energy up for those snipes.
Yeah, they're a real seesaw unit, aren't they? I mean, if they get the right angle and you can't interrupt those snipes, the ultralisks just pop. They disappear, but if the Zerg player can flank it...
The first few fights, he did a great job of neutralizing them. He was able to get the Lings and Banelings on top of them.
Yeah, I think it was probably just a little bit uncomfortable saying, you know, do I really want to let this game go for another 15 minutes? No, let's finish it now. But in hindsight, who knows? Maybe even that Hydralisk counter earlier onto the planetary, maybe if he just kind of kept spreading creep, focused more on his defensive advantages, pushed through to the Broodlords. It's definitely a failing we do see a little bit in the less experienced players, where sometimes they do feel a little bit rushed to finish the game, whereas the more experienced veterans have been up on this stage so many times, even if it's not their favorite part of the game, they'll still fight very hard there. And we saw, of course, Major, especially, he had the best plan. It was like, hey, let's just go 3 factories, and normally you'd see mass siege tank production for a long time, but he was very quick to just say, nope, let's go into ghost production. It's okay for some of those factories to sit idle. I don't need just mass siege tanks, and it ended up being the right call, because you imagine when those Vipers come out, you've got like 12 siege tanks there. Blinding Cloud just knocks them off the map. They just count for nothing.
And perhaps the map plays into that a bit as well, considering the size of it. Once the creep spread is shut down, he can go into those slower ghosts because he knows that it will also take more time for the reinforcements to cross the map for PandaBearMe, but he comes into a 1-0 lead here at the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang as we get ready to go into game number 2 to see if the USA Zerg player can swing things back in his favor.
Gonna have to fight hard in this one. Does have a big task ahead of him, but I think some confidence boosting moments in the early game of map number 1. So he's definitely got his plan set out in front of him. He's got a good shot here.
And let's see what he can do as we've loaded into black-pink for game number 2 of this best of 5. In the bottom left position, representing Mexico, we have the blue Terran player SpeCial.
And facing off against him in the top right-hand side, representing USA, it is PandaBearMe.
So, as we get into this second game, Black-Pink feels like a good bit smaller than Eastwatch, perhaps for the reinforcements, for the counterattack, the run-bys. Things could progress a lot more quickly in this game. It feels a lot more claustrophobic in that sort of way.
Kind of does, doesn't it? You know, this is one of those very defensible maps where you've got good angles to just kind of defend and build up your economy, but it definitely does not have that huge middle area in the map that Eastwatch has. Like, there's still interesting paths and rock paths that can be taken down and that sort of thing, but nothing like as complicated as Eastwatch. And also a map which has been around for several months now. It's a map which the players have a lot of experience and practice on, so definitely both of them going to be feeling very comfortable here with their choice of strategies. And interestingly enough, SpeCial not opting for the low ground wall in yet again. So I guess he doesn't really opt for it on this map that much, but a lot of the time recently he has been going for a barracks on the low ground and walling off specifically to stop Zergs from going pool first and running their Zerglings in. And PandaBearMe was talking about that, and he was saying, I really want to go pool first in one of these maps and try to run some Zerglings past, but he keeps doing that low ground wall off, and I know it's not going to work against that.
And perhaps SpeCial not doing it because he says, well, I don't want him to try and anticipate that. Kind of the magic of StarCraft, right? People, you can only know so much about what your opponent's going to do, and making choices based off of things that you don't know for sure are going to happen can have interesting repercussions. And we're going to have Special open up with the Reaper again as he just goes straight across map. He's going to be looking around. Maybe he's trying to see if those Zerglings are waiting somewhere, or if a hidden proxy hatchery or something like that is set up. It will be the factory with the reactor, the second gas. We've seen this before, but there's so many different things that you can do with this as a Terran. We could see that Liberator, or we could see this pig.
Oh, I love this build from SpeCial. He's been doing this a lot lately. He actually did this just a few days ago in an online cup as well, and he loves to follow up with ghosts with this Hellion opening and just using them as a pure combat unit. So of course they don't have Cloak anymore by default, but he doesn't care. It's all about the synergy of those ghosts and the Hellbats. The Hellbats take down the Zerglings, the light units, and the ghosts. That snipe. I mean, that's so powerful.
And you know, the interesting thing is the patch, it gave the ghost more energy at the cost of not starting with the cloak upgrade, but that earlier boost of energy means that we could see even more snipes come out faster, and that could cause this to snowball out of control extremely quickly if PandaBearMe doesn't properly respond.
Yeah, you know, PandaBearMe is a player who's definitely encountered this style of build on the ladder before. And the real trick of it is to not get too greedy and not be too reliant on the strength of things like, say, Queens or Roaches, because those units, they just have almost the perfect hit point pool to get just knocked down with a single snipe. So I bet probably 3 or 4 Ghosts with a bunch of Hellbats is what SpeCial will be planning to push with. Not sure, did a Zergling just get in the base and spot that Ghost Academy? I think no, it did not.
Looked around a little bit, but this is something that if you were studying SpeCial, he has busted this out a few times recently. It's one of those builds, especially on this map, that you need to be particularly prepared for him, and it's what makes him such a threatening player. The Hellions are poking the Queens, and this is just that early phase where he's just trying to push some pressure on. The Reaper regenerates the health that it loses, so if it can soak up the first shot or two, it helps a lot. He's getting a Cyclone to follow this up as well, interestingly enough.
Yeah, Cyclone's going to add in a nice bit of tanking, and already a snipe comes in. One Queen does go down. Not a bad start to things here for SpeCial. And that Ghost, of course, has great verse light damage and, of course, can shoot up, so can slowly pick away at those Overlords. So SpeCial here already mounting the pressure. It seems like there is no Baneling Nest down for PandaBearMe, so just Zerglings and Queens for now. A Roach Warren is almost finished. And that's going to be the answer he's looking for. Lots of Roaches and Zerglings to try and wrap around this.
He's going to be very careful as he tries to deal with this. The Ghost coming up for that snipe. He does lose vision. Of course, the Ghost, it gets the energy back for that snipe when it gets canceled, so he can take another shot when the opportunity presents itself.
You know, you've got to be careful with those snipes because it will leave a Queen with just a couple of hit points, so they can quickly transfuse if you haven't done some damage just beforehand. So do keep your eyes out for that. If a full energy Queen does get hit by a snipe and PandaBearMe is fast enough, he can heal it just before it goes down.
I do like this. He's not trying to commit super hard. He's waiting. He's being very patient with how he moves the Ghost up because he has those Cyclones coming in instead of the Hellbats. So we do see now he comes up with the snipes. He gets one of those Queens. You see the other one was left with just a few health, as you pointed out, Pig. But the Cyclone backbone of this army is going to make that Roach reinforcement a little less impactful. The Zerglings want to go for the counterattack, but there's a single sniper waiting at the wall to push these hordes away.
Yeah, it's not going to find any damage just yet, and you can see the situation that SpeCial finds himself in here at 45 workers to 37 drones, and this is often what he does with this opening. It's not so much about trying to eliminate the Zerg player, but it's about creating such a difficult set of units to counteract that he pushes across the map, forces this big overreaction, and then he pulls back and says, hey, I've got an economy advantage. I can use these Ghosts in the later on stages of the game. It's totally fine. So SpeCial with the 3rd command center now fully finished, an armory and a 2nd factory on the way. It's going to be a delayed mech transition.
Yep, he snipes the Overlord to make sure that he can finish it off, and I love that point that you bring up, Pig, because that's where the experience comes in. These two Ghosts being a little bit close to the sun here on these Roaches, but he knows that he doesn't have to win the game right now. He's put on plenty of pressure. He prevented the 3rd base from having workers put on it, and with the mech transition coming in, and he already has Ghosts that can take out a lot of the other weird units that you might have to deal with, like Fast Mutas, something like that. He has all the tools that he needs to just play the game straight up from here. He's already ahead in the series and just work his way towards a map 2 victory.
Exactly. I mean, it's move and counter move here. SpeCial forces the reaction and then just kind of backs off. He does come in here with these Hellions now. Where is the army of PandaBearMe? It's nowhere to be seen. It's out on the other side of the map, and that's a lot of workers going down, hitting hard into the economy of our Zerg player. Ooh. A big score here for Mexico as SpeCial takes down a ton of workers.
The Roaches are going to go for the counterattack, but the siege tanks are in position. The Cyclones are there, and the Ghosts lending those snipes to help clean these up. If he can pull them away long enough to get more snipes, and he should be able to deal with this. Those tanks are very expensive, and it's very rough for him to lose that, but he still has his economy intact. He didn't lose anywhere near as many workers. Losing the tanks will definitely hurts, depending on how many more Roaches we see for the follow-up, whether he's able to knock SpeCial off the third.
Yeah, I mean, normally that would be a good trade, but with the 16 workers going down, that's the problem for PandaBearMe. Down 10 workers, no fourth base even started. And if we take a look at SpeCial, look, and this is just beautiful right now. We've got the range upgrades on the way for PandaBearMe as well, and that +1 vehicle weapons is about to finish here for SpeCial.
Yep, and that of course is going to help buff up those siege tanks to get even more firepower in through this army. That big Roach commitment, just siege tanks alone will be able to do with this. We don't see any other sort of follow-up here for PandaBearMe. He's putting, it seems to be putting everything in on this. There's no infestation pit that I can see. There's no hive tech, which means he's going to be very delayed on his late game tech.
Oh, and these Hellions are going to scout it though. They're going to come in and they're going to find even more
there's still
damage.
nothing here. There's still nothing here to stop this.
Oh,
he's
going
to get more
for
of the
another
drones.
big attack. And that attack is not going to find the damage on the other side of the map, I don't think. But at the same time, losing workers at home, he's got to go for it. He's got to commit.
He's going to siege up those tanks. He has tanks sieged at the third with 9 drones dying at home. And these Ghosts, the best thing about having this utility unit, it was great for the push, and it's also going to just clean up these Roaches. You can just snipe them away from a very safe distance. Now the infestation pit comes. Now the +2 attack comes. But is it too late, Pig? SpeCial with the mech army's got a nice supply lead, and he's practically untouchable with his base setup.
PandaBearMe here is just being forced into a position where he says, oh, I've taken economic damage. I need to do something back to you to equalize. But every time SpeCial is ready, even when it seems like he's caught unawares, he shuts down the Roach counterattack at the loss of only a few siege tanks. This second round did almost nothing. And now SpeCial is fully established going into the large late game portions of the game. He's got a 4th command center on the way. He's got a ton of factories just producing a massive army. Meanwhile, PandaBearMe is sort of frozen in this setup phase. He doesn't have the economy he wants to have. He doesn't have the upgrades or the production capabilities either. It's just been a series of small advantages that has now flowered into a massive lead for the Mexican Terran.
Yeah, and he's leveraged his income into, he had a couple big waves of Hellions come out so that he could dump his gas into more Ghosts and those upgrades with that blue flame and that +2. But now the Ghosts are going to come up with these siege tanks. This is a huge army, and the tech to counter this is just not on the field for PandaBearMe. And even if he could flank these tanks before they were able to siege, I still don't even know that would be enough. This is just such a powerful army from the Mexican Terran player.
Yeah, being stuck on just Roaches against Tank Hellbat, never a situation a Zerg player wants to be in. Those siege tanks covering from the high ground, the Ghosts and siege tanks on the low ground as well. Massive shots all over the Roach army. Hellions even running forward to try and get hits on the drones. And this Roach counterattack desperately looking for damage, but just not finding enough.
Yeah, there's just not enough that he can do. He gets a few of the SCVs in the natural expansion, but minerals are not an issue. As SpeCial still has 70 SCVs to keep that economy going. He knocks down that expansion, and once again, PandaBearMe set back on the same number of bases as SpeCial. By the time he's mining on this expansion, SpeCial will already have landed his 4th, turned it into a planetary fortress, and have that economy locked down.
A desperate situation for the American Zerg player. He's looking to fight his way back in however he can. Viper Tech is now out. One of the play, and just something which is going to give him a tiny bit of hope, but I don't think SpeCial's going to be giving him the time here. This push through the middle is so scary. Snipes landing on the Hydras, Nate.
And just making sure to use that. The Roach counterattack here comes up. These tanks aren't sieged. It's enough Roaches to be threatening, but even those Ghosts, like, they're just so good at picking off these cheap units. Every time he fights, it's just a handful of these units are going to die. He gets the Vipers as soon as they come out. One of them's going to make it away, but he needs time to get energy for Abduct, and these Hydras get blown up by the siege tanks.
These Ghosts are finding massive amounts of damage already. And that's it. PandaBearMe is going to type out good game. And SpeCial, the Mexican powerhouse, takes the 2-0. An unsurprising result for the Mexican fans out there. But PandaBearMe, of course, showing us a good fight, putting in some good moves throughout these games. Not quite at the stage of his career just yet where he's ready to take on the best Terran outside of Korea.
Yeah, this series so far playing out, I think a bit of the way that the boys of the desk predicted and we were discussing earlier. SpeCial comes in as the veteran, the more experienced, accomplished player, and he's really showing it. His decision-making has been impeccable, and we've seen twice now where PandaBearMe is put in these difficult spots where his response is to just commit everything that he has and try to catch SpeCial, maybe being greedy or unaware that such an attack would be coming his way.
You know, SpeCial is a master of the game. This is exactly how he plays always. It's just about move after move, trying to force himself into an advantageous position. He is just a true master of the game, and really, it is something which is so hard to play against until you've played it at the absolute tip-top level. You feel like you are kind of just being outmaneuvered on every side. He's hitting you in 2 or 3 places at once, and it's very tough to deal with. So hats off to the American player. They're fighting hard. SpeCial here, despite having such an insane schedule lately with his tournament performances, we don't see a drop in his skill at all. He is still performing 100% every single day.
Yeah, I have to say, one of my favorite things about SpeCial is that he has that variety in build orders. You know, there's still so many things that we've seen him do that he could still break out for a potential, you know, even if he was to drop a map here, we know that he likes to do builds like that fast Liberator range. We know that he can just play very straight up Banshee builds with the Hellions. He could do normal Hellbat attack. We've seen him do anything and everything. And prepare for that is just so difficult when, you know, you don't see people do that Ghost Rush build with the Hellions. And even then, you normally expect it to be with Hellbats, but he showed up with Cyclones this time.
It's actually so difficult to deal with that. And, you know, like, it's just such a great thing to do. This is what separates the championship caliber players from the guys who are just a little bit below that. And it's not only are they perfect with their execution, not only are their build orders incredible, but it's the fact that they can dig deep into the bag of tricks, pull out something that forces their opponent into an uncomfortable position. It's not necessarily about one big gamble they're throwing at their opponent. It's just, hey, here's a really uncomfortable position. It's very hard to deal with. So, of course, the next map is actually going to be Backwater, which is going to be the map where we've talked about the Range Liberators quite a lot.
Oh, yes. It's one of the best maps for the Range Liberator builds as we continue on here with SpeCial versus PandaBearMe at the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang in 2018 as this series going very well so far for our Mexican Terran player.
Yeah, this is definitely a map where everybody's been talking about SpeCial on it because he is the one who, right after it came out at the WCS stop, was, of course, showcasing some very cute features of that, where he could take advantage of his opponent's mineral lines and damage their economy very early on. But he's so well known for it at this stage, not sure if he's going to go for that. This is one of these maps which is very fascinating. It's got, of course, a free in-base expansion, as well as some other features, which we're going to find out about in just a moment.
As we are loaded into Backwater, in the northwest position, we have the blue Terran player representing Mexico, leading 2-0. He's SpeCial, busting out a variety of strategies over the course of this series against this American Zerg.
And down here in the bottom right-hand side, representing the USA, it is PandaBearMe.
Is back against the ropes here, Pig, as he tries to claw his way back into this series, and what is, I think, fair to say, one of the biggest stages that he'll have played on so far in his career. A monumental moment and a great achievement for him regardless of the result.
Yeah, you know, back in my day, I've been down 0-2 against people much better than me or much more experienced than me many times, and I know from first-hand experience this is the moment where a competitor like PandaBearMe has to dig deep and he has to look inside himself and say, is this the point where you start to feel a little bit distraught or upset at the fact that the series isn't going your way? Or is it where you say, you know what, I've got nothing left to lose. The only thing I can do here is dig deep and show everything that I've got. Just play the games I've been practicing as hard as possible. And if I can take a map or two, who knows what can happen from there.
Yeah, the opportunities are endless. And going onto this map, things are usually very different on this. Since the new season started, I have to say I played a lot of weird games on this one, Pig. The fact that there are actually no bases in the middle of the map is like something you don't really realize until it gets very late, and you're constantly running in this ring around to try and find opportunities. I'm wondering if PandaBearMe will take that into account with his strategy for this game.
Well, it's interesting because what that forces is a lot of front-on engagements. Because, for instance, we often see Zerg players give up an expansion and just simply move drones to the other side of the map. You know, expand down both sides of the map at the same time. But you don't have that option on Backwater. You only have one direction you can really expand. So if that direction gets compromised, if your opponent overwhelms your front, you have nowhere else to expand to. You need to regain that position. And that's why the center of this map is so important. It's why this whole kind of swampy river area is where we'll see a lot of contention in the mid-game. But for now, this Reaper, absolutely unafraid of these slow Zerglings. It is a little bit longer in the game before the Zergling speed upgrade comes in. Up until then, the Reaper reigns supreme.
Yep, and there's a lot of room for it to dance around with. No easy wall block off to use the Queen to cover that. This base, I mean, the third base is in the pocket. It's kept a little bit safe. I guess the Terran can get the Reaper in there, but he's going to take the one closer here up front.
Oh, very nice snipe on that creep tumor. I like what you're saying, though. Yeah, he's taking the front base here, and I think that's a clear reaction to the ranged Liberator, right?
Yeah.
We've seen SpeCial, you're talking about it, I'm talking about it, everybody's talking about this great spot on the other base that he can take advantage of. So PandaBearMe says, you know what, I'll just take this base out in the open, and we're just going to ignore this expansion until the later stages when that's not a threat.
Yeah, our observer just pointed out, there's a lot of areas you can just siege a Liberator with range, and it just can't be attacked. And you know, it forces a specific response, so he'd rather just take his base. The Reaper gets into the main. The Queen was transferred down, so gets a little bit of poking in, but as you said, Pig, with Zergling speed done, that Reaper cannot get too much more damage in.
And it is going to be this low ground wall off, of course, here for SpeCial. Does keep his production very exposed, but makes him very safe against any early Zergling run-bys. So SpeCial looking very comfortable and in control so far. It is going to be a medevac coming out here. A nice change up here for SpeCial. Going to allow him to do a Hellion drop into the back area. And this is really good on this map because that whole north area of PandaBearMe's base, no Overlord coverage. He's got no spotters. And that is exactly where SpeCial will look to drop those Hellions, dive into the back of the natural, and try and get a drone barbecue going.
He's got a lot of workers, a little bit oversaturation on that base as he hasn't transferred to that third yet. So the opportunity to get a lot of work done with a Hellion drop is very real. And behind this, Pig, Cloak, Banshees, Armory. It looks like it's going to be a mech follow-up, but also a very big push to follow that up with maybe Hellbats and Banshees.
Yeah, this could be a really protracted sort of mass Hellbat Banshee. Overlords are now getting in position. They do spot this. SpeCial quick to react, says, okay, I've got to go now or never.
Oh, but the drones, they haven't been moved away. He gets 8 immediately. The Zerglings come up and he picks him up in the medevac, and he's going to be able to get out of dodge real easy, saves all the Hellions, and he still has that armory coming in. When those Hellions turn into Hellbats, the medevac can repair them.
PandaBearMe slightly too slow to react there, and the drop comes back in once again. This time the Queens are in position, but SpeCial just finding these little bits of damage, and as always, this is the pattern we see. It's not a giant commitment. He gets all 4 Hellions out. He can use them to continue with follow-up pressure. He can morph them into Hellbats and hit a frontal assault with the Banshees as well if he wishes to, and man, that's a lot of Hellions there, Nate.
And when they turn into Hellbats, they will mow down any number of Zerglings. A couple of Banelings are going to be added into the mix, which can help deal with this. He does want to wait for Cloak. He doesn't want the Banshee to get picked off by the Queens too easily. And a lot of Lings are coming in. He's going to do a drop at the same time in the main.
Oh, just going to dive in with these Hellions and see how many workers they can get. Already a few going down. The Zerglings are hopping back into the main, but once again saves all 4 of them. This is it. Minimal commitment, maximum damage, and securing the economy behind it. SpeCial has the third base up and running. He's got Cyclones in production as well, ready to stop any counterattacks. And of course, the next step of his plan will just be to add a ton of factories and mass out that production. In the middle of the map, we do have a little bit of a skirmish going on as well. The Queen's trying to push back these Hellions and Banshees. But so far, so good for PandaBearMe. He has managed to deflect it. He's taken a few little bits of damage. He's a bit scratched, but he's not out of this game by any means. He's actually got good creep spread and a very small worker lead.
Yep, we see the transition into Hydralisk's beginning as he gets his upgrades underway as well. The Overseer up front keeps the Banshee a non-factor as it tries to get close, but immediately gets picked off. The Hellions are just trying to grab those Queens and get some of the Lings. You do not want the Banelings to get too close of a connection on them. And still just pumping out tons of units. He's going to make the big Hellbat transform. He's got 4 Cyclones with this army Pig. The Banelings trying to get on top of the Hellbats. He's going to split just well enough. He can still deal with the Zerglings, but more Banelings are coming.
More Banelings coming in. These Hellbats and Cyclones with +1 doing so much damage. That Banshee does finally fall there. The Cyclones trying to tank against these Zerglings, and Banelings doing a fantastic job.
I love it.
Still 5 Hellbats coming through. That's just too much anti-Zergling power, Nate.
I love it so much. He let the Cyclones take that damage, and now he's roasting the drones at that third base. And SpeCial looking to take a 3-0 victory here for Mexico at the Intel Extreme Masters. PyeongChang's Morslings are coming out, but the Hellion reinforcements have arrived. They're going to turn into Hellbats. The Queen is potentially going to fall on the way out, but I think losing this third base with the Terran player securely on 3 with getting the +2 mech, he has to defend this, and I just don't think he can.
Impressive play here from SpeCial. He's got the macro behind it. He's got 3 bases up. He's got 70 workers, and he takes down the third of PandaBearMe. PandaBear trying to get into Roaches and Hydras, but he's not quite there yet.
This build synergized so well, too. The early +1 attack from the Hellbat push makes the Cyclone astronomically more powerful at dealing with the bases, dealing with the Queens, and dealing with the Roaches, and we see that payoff in spades here.
PandaBearMe, knowing he's down very far, once again forced into a position where he realized he needs to make a big counter move happen, and the Nidus Worm does drop down, of course, trying to just teleport his entire army into his opponent's main base. One big last-ditch gamble, but the numbers are not in his favor. Even with SpeCial having such a large economy behind it, he's found a chance to build a lot of Cyclones, Hellions. He's still got that Banshee out. Tanks are starting to pump on out, and I don't know, Nate. Even if that Nidus Worm gets in the main, I think best case scenario, he clears out a lot of workers, evacuates, and then just goes back into the longer game. I don't think this is going to be a finishing blow no matter what.
He really needs a miracle amount of damage from this attack, and honestly, if these two Vikings were to spot that Overlord and deny the Nidus from being placed inside the main, I don't think there's any way that this gets the damage he's looking for. But there is the Nidus. It should be spotted by the reactor on the starport. SpeCial should realize that this is coming, and if he reacts quickly enough, he should be okay against this. There's only so many Roaches that are even in that Nidus right now.
Yeah, he's trying to move back here. SpeCial wanting to seal the deal. He knows if he can shut this down, he'll be in a fantastic position. And Isaac knows it. PandaBearMe just loads back into the Nidus and does evacuate. Makes the best of a bad situation. Is, of course, trying to resaturate this base here on his third, build up more workers in the economy, but I mean, SpeCial, he's just been blocking every move at every corner. He's been putting the hurt on while expanding and covering the map, and now 170 supply to 97. This is where that big push starts to close it out across the map.
Yeah, when you've got Hellions killing your Roaches, that's when you know things are not going so well. PandaBearMe trying to bring his army up. SpeCial does not care. These inefficient trades are more than enough for him as his siege tanks show up. The cavalry is here, and GG is called. SpeCial takes the series 3-0.
Impressive play there. That was so well done by the Mexican Terran player. Shows his class of player. Impressive play.
Yeah. Amazing gameplay by SpeCial. We can see why he came in as the veteran, as the favorite, and why he walks away with that victory.
Yeah, the American player just not quite able to keep it up on par with him, and this is it. PandaBearMe comes in as one of the players who has to play the match against SpeCial to start out. It's never going to be easy. That's just not how you want your tournament to start out, but this is where it starts. For a player who's coming up as a young player, you're not going to have the highest seeding. You have to often face the absolute favorites in your first few tournaments. As your seedings get higher, you start to get matches which are more doable, and I'm sure we're going to see more of him down the track.
Well, I'm joining the gentleman once again here at the caster's desk. Thank you very much for that start to the tournament, boys. SpeCial looking very, very strong there to begin things off. Game one, though, that was a little bit more prolonged there. PandaBearMe had some fight in him.
Denying those Hellions gave him a really nice spot at the start of the game, it felt like.
Yeah, he was able to get a few little edges there, but in the end, I mean, SpeCial, he's just kept coming from every side, and we saw the experience just weighed supreme there in the end.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, going into game two as well, it's not the most conventional thing you see, right, with that little bit of a ghost flare in there at the beginning. I think he's used it a few times in the past or whatever, but it's certainly very, very difficult to deal with from a Zerg perspective, right?
It's one of those things, it just forces you out of your comfort zone. It's something you're never going to have practiced a lot against, and when you're already the favored player with more experience, if you can put that pressure on and just make them uncomfortable, it's just a great choice from SpeCial. Shows his experience, his class, and PandaBearMe not quite able to keep up.
Well, I'm getting word, gentlemen, that our interview is ready as we hear from SpeCial winning with a 3-0.
In our first match of the day, it was the USA versus Mexico, and Mexico is the one that comes out on top. So first of all, congratulations, SpeCial. It was the round of 18 match, and it looked like a really smooth victory for you. So was it as easy for you as the scoreline looked?
No. He surprised me. He was better than I thought he would be, especially on game 1. I was a little bit confused and nervous, but I managed to win that game, so I felt pretty confident afterwards.
Well, elaborate a little bit more on game 1, as that was definitely the most promising one for PandaBearMe. When you went into attack and he got that surround, what was going on in your head?
Normally, when people play against me, when they're not like around my same level, they play very greedy and they skip a lot of links. So I like to do sometimes run by Hellions. But he had like a lot more links than normally, so he defended pretty well. So he was quite ahead, but I managed to come back by just playing a long game.
Well, luckily, you were able to win the next 2 games to win 3-0. Now you're going to be in the round of 16, and your next opponent is going to be Demi, another Zerg player. You played him once before, and it was a confident 2-0, so how do you feel about him?
I don't know much about him, but I think I should win as long as play at my level, so yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much, SpeCial, and good luck.
SpeCial there with a 3-0 victory, and of quite confident fashion. He was mentioning that he did have a little bit of confusion there in that first game, but it was all ironed out as things go on. I'm joined once again to my left-hand side here by Artosis and Rotterdam to start things going off. And, you know, we were sat at the back there watching that best of 3 going on. And Rotterdam, looking at how that series played out, what really stood out to you?
I mean, what I think is funny, when you've got like a seasoned veteran like SpeCial going up against a newcomer, I often think that the very first game or even the first big engagement or skirmish is already important and sets the tone for that series. The moment that PandaBearMe killed those 6 Hellions and barely lost anything, he lost a single drone, I was like, that is exactly the start that this newcomer needs, because that's going to give him a lot of confidence. Yeah. But it just didn't really turn out that way at all. That's something we've seen in the past. I think the biggest thing here is obviously experience. I really think there were moments, especially after he took down those Hellions in the first game, he has so much freedom and he didn't capitalize on it. I felt that after a start like that, the Zerg is really supposed to take a very comfortable 15 to 20 worker lead. I think that's sort of the confusion that SpeCial mentioned there as well. Right. But yet it felt that PandaBearMe was always trying to be super safe against everything, and that's how SpeCial crawled his way back into the game. And if there's one thing that really goes for all 3 games, it's just the fact that PandaBearMe was not able to hurt the economy of SpeCial, but SpeCial was always hurting the economy of PandaBearMe.
And actually, Dan, we can take a bit more of an in-depth look, really, as we head on over here to our board. Because game number 1, it did look like PandaBearMe had a little bit more momentum going for him.
Yeah, you know, he blocked those Hellions like Kevin was talking about, and then this is a turning point as well in the game where SpeCial is coming in with a huge push, and just look, we'll take a pause right here. 3 angles we're seeing from our Zerg player PandaBearMe coming in. This is scary for a Zerg player, a push like this many siege tanks, lots of Marines in here. The Zerg is over here, so sometimes they'll just try to attack in, and Terran will kill them as they come through a choke. But this flank, let's go ahead and play it. You'll see he just wipes this army out, and this is such an important moment. If you can kill the big siege tank-based army of Terran, you definitely gain an advantage. And he does that pretty clearly. But then a little bit later on, if we can jump to that second clip, I can go ahead and pause it here. This is the same type of area. It's the same type of thing. He could theoretically come from 3 angles again. Right. But this time, his entire army is down here, and he is just trying to shove through. Now, this is a much later point in the game. It felt to me, coming to this point, that PandaBearMe definitely had a chance to win. He had the Ultralisks in here. It was very powerful. But if we take a look at how this attack goes down, going through this choke, it's very small. His army is better, so he's going to kind of be able to get through, but then he keeps chasing. He just chases this army all the way back. You see, he's just running away. He's getting into this great defensive position, and this is where really PandaBearMe ended up losing game 1. And after that, the other 2 games were much more of a blowout. Game 1 was really the place where PandaBearMe had a good chance.
And the important part being that planetary fortress down to the bottom, retreating back to that.
Absolutely. You know, this is such a great defensive position for SpeCial that PandaBearMe is losing tons of extra units. He's just kind of bleeding in there, and it didn't go well.
No, it didn't indeed. And that, obviously, is the 3-0 as we we head back to the desk now. Thank you very much, Dan, for that. We can head on back and join in with Rotterdam once again here. And overall, Rotterdam, looking at how that played out, I mean, you know, game number 1 there being broken down, but looking at how game number 3 went, something like that, PandaBearMe just kind of loses momentum in a lot of those. Tried for that desperate Nidosworm at the end to keep himself in.
Yeah, I don't even really pay attention to that ending of the game there. It really starts off with that first moment. When you go up against a superior player, which SpeCial is on paper, he's got the bigger accomplishments. You need good starts. And the moment that a Hellion can unload a medevac can unload 4 Hellions, in your pocket expands, they can drive by, they can take down 8 drones, and then they get picked up again. I mean, if you lose 8 drones but you kill 4 Hellions, it's like, that's kind of rough, but I can maybe live with it. We can recover. But no, all the Hellions lived. And then you know, okay, now you can remake those drones. But then the next push comes and it's even bigger. And it goes back to what I said. I think game 2 is the same thing. That Ghost build that SpeCial used, I think it's very fun, by the way. Awesome build that he brings it out here at a big stage. He did it against Snoot at the WCS circuit event in Leipzig. Biggest difference is that Snoot was counterattacking while it was going on. Also, if you make roaches against it, roach is obviously very expensive. It slows down your own economy. And PandaBearMe just didn't do any economic damage. Not in game 1, not in game 2, and not in game 3. And I think that just hurt him the most. SpeCial was able to do whatever the hell he wanted, and PandaBearMe tried to be safe against everything and just... I think it's a clear sign of a lack of experience. He showed really promising, really good things in game 1. Love that engagement that Dan showed on the Telestrator as well. Just, you know, you can't only defend, you need to be aggressive as well.
We'll see him at other tournaments and now down the line for sure, I'm thinking, as we now check in with the bracket and see exactly what's gone on so far here in this tournament. And we can see that SpeCial, with that victory, will propel himself forwards into the round of 16. And then we have other updates coming in, as we had Scarlet being able to take a victory over in the lower part of that bracket as well in the round of 18. And in fact, I can go and check in to get a bit of a breakdown as to what actually happened there. Mr. Tasteless, welcome to the broadcast, and break us down what's going on.
It was a great series. Scarlet was definitely the favorite going into this. As we jump in here into game 1, we saw some aggression very early on, really pushing into Cham's base. Cham does defend, but then Scarlet gets an additional expansion. They're both going roaches, so obviously in a mirror matchup, if you're up 1 base for that long, you're going to get a lead. Now we see Cham come down here in a very important moment in the game. You can see at this point in time in the supplies, 130 to 154, Scarlet with a huge lead. This was probably the only chance Cham really had to make any dent in this game. And we can see already as the army's arcing around here for Scarlet, there's not many other options here for Cham. So eventually Cham is then pushed back now towards the 3rd base and eventually gets overwhelmed.
Bit unfortunate there, I suppose, for Cham going up against someone like Scarlet, who is such a competitive and well-experienced player on the international scene.
Certainly. I mean, Scarlet's been in Korea for some time now, so she's been playing with the best. She's currently top 16 in GSL here in Korea, so a very dominant player for sure. We can see here in game number 2, Scarlet actually losing that initial hatchery. Big play there by Cham. Scarlet this time around does not go for the Roach tech. Instead, Scarlet techs into Mutalisks. And from here, it's actually a pretty straightforward game. The drones, there's nothing here to defend them. They begin to pull away. And with the Mutalisks wedged in between the 2 bases here, there's no way to get any adequate defense up here. Normally, I think a game like this would have gone on a little bit longer, but Scarlet was so dominant in that attack. We ended up jumping right into game 3, which was by far the coolest game. So we're going way into late game here. We're talking about 5-base Zerg versus Zerg at this point. Cham does a crazy all-in with a Nidus, sending almost his entire army into the main. But from there, Scarlet decides to counterattack, freeing up some of her supply. Scarlet manages to then crush through these bases, and with some of the army that Scarlet lost, it freed up enough room to then allow her to produce enough roaches to then try to actually manage to wipe out the counterattack in the main. But it was a pretty dramatic end here. Showing that Cham is a great player, but Scarlet's practice has definitely paid off.
We got to see Cham in a lot of the WCS throughout the last year, being very impressive with his deep runs. But Scarlet, as you mentioned, top 16 in GSL, a very prestigious tournament in StarCraft 2 nowadays. Very rare that our competitors that aren't from Korea are able to get to that spot, correct?
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing how far Scarlet's going to go in this IEM.
All right, well, thank you very much, Nick, for that update as we continue things on here at the Intel Extreme Masters. We're going to go to a short break, ladies and gentlemen, and when we return, more from the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang.